the barrel pressed cold against her temple. 3 men, 1 gun, and a 24-year-old woman who hadn't blinked once. They called her sweetheart. They told her to kneel. They asked if she had any last words. What they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly know, was that she'd spent 3 years extracting hostages from places far darker than this truck stop diner. And the moment Cade Rourke's finger moved toward that trigger, he sealed his own fate. Before we show you how a girl in a hoodie became the last thing they ever underestimated, drop a comment with the city you're watching from. Hit subscribe. Turn on notifications. Because this story will change how you see silence forever. The coffee had gone cold 20 minutes ago. Raina Mercer didn't care. She wasn't drinking it for the taste. She was drinking it because her hands needed something to hold, and if they weren't holding ceramic, they'd be shaking. Not from fear. Never from fear. From something worse. The diner was called Rosie's, Highway 87, New Mexico. 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that felt like it had lasted 3 years. She sat in the corner booth, back to the wall, eyes on every exit. Old habit. The kind that gets drilled into your spine until you forget there was ever a time you didn't count doors and windows before you sat down. The waitress had stopped by twice. Both times Raina had said the same thing. "Just coffee, thank you." No smile, no small talk. Just those 4 words and eyes that looked right through the woman like she was measuring the distance between the counter and the kitchen door. The waitress Maria, according to her name tag, had stopped asking after that. Raina reached into her jacket pocket. Her fingers found the envelope. Still there. Still sealed. Still carrying the weight of a dead man's last words to his mother. Tommy Chen had written it the night before Raqqa. Just in case, he'd said, pressing it into her palm with that stupid grin he always wore before missions. You know, if things go sideways. Things went sideways. She'd carried that letter for 11 months. 11 months of telling herself she'd deliver it tomorrow. 11 months of driving past the Oklahoma exit and finding another reason to keep moving. Tomorrow never came. Until tonight. She'd finally crossed into New Mexico, finally committed to the drive, finally accepted that Sarah Chen deserved to read her son's last words from someone who'd watched him die. But first, she needed coffee. And silence. And maybe another hour before she had to look into a mother's eyes and explain why she came home. And Tommy didn't. The bell above the door chimed. Raina's eyes lifted. Automatic. Cataloging. 3 men walked in. The first was big, not tall-wide. Shoulders that stretched his denim jacket tight. Neck thick as a fence post, hands that hung at his sides like they were looking for something to grab. He moved like he owned the room before he'd taken 2 steps inside. The second was leaner. Nervous energy. Eyes that bounced around the diner like a pinball, never settling, always calculating. He stayed a half step behind the first, close enough to back him up, far enough to run if things turned. The third was youngest, maybe 22, trying too hard to look tough. The kind of kid who'd watched too many movies and thought intimidation was about how hard you stared. Raina clocked them in 2 seconds. Trouble. Not for her. She wasn't on anyone's radar tonight. Just a young woman in a faded hoodie, no makeup, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked like a college student on a road trip. Forgettable. Invisible. Exactly how she wanted it. The 3 men didn't sit down. They stood near the register, talking, low eyes cutting toward the kitchen door every few seconds. The big one, Raina, had already labeled him Alpha in her head, kept checking his watch. Waiting for something. Or someone. Maria emerged from the back, carrying a pot of fresh coffee. She froze. The color drained from her face so fast Raina thought she might faint. The coffee pot trembled in her grip. Her eyes locked on Alpha, and everything about her body language screamed one word: run. But she didn't run. Couldn't. The only exit was past them. Alpha smiled. "Hey, Maria, miss me?" His voice carried across the empty diner. Confident, possessive, the voice of a man who'd never been told no in his life. Maria's jaw tightened. "Kitchen's closed. We're not here for food." Raina's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. The second man, she labeled him Beta, circled left, cutting off the path to the front door. Casual, like he was just looking at the pie case. But his positioning was deliberate, tactical even in a sloppy amateur way. The youngest one stayed by the register. Blocking. Watching. 3-point containment. They'd done this before. "I told you last week," Maria said, voice steady, despite the fear bleeding through every syllable. "I don't want to see you again. Ever. And I told you." Alpha stepped closer. "That's not how this works. You don't get to decide when we're done. I decide." "Cade, please. Please what?" He was close now. Too close. His hand came up, fingers catching her chin, forcing her face toward his. "Please leave you alone. Please pretend you didn't embarrass me in front of my boys. Please forget that you made me look like a fool." Maria's coffee pot clattered onto the counter. Her hands were shaking too hard to hold it. "I just said I wasn't interested. That's all I said." "That's all you said?" Cade's voice dropped. Dangerous. "In front of half the town. Like I'm some kind of joke. You're hurting me." "Not yet." Raina set her coffee cup down. The ceramic made a soft click against the table. Not loud, not threatening, just a sound. But it was enough to break Cade's focus for half a second. He turned. His eyes found Raina in the corner booth, scanned her once, dismissed her, turned back to Maria. "Let's take this conversation somewhere private," he said. "Out back, just you and me." "No." The word came from Raina. She hadn't meant to say it, hadn't planned to get involved. She was just passing through. Just a woman with a letter in her pocket and a ghost on her conscience. But there was something in Maria's eyes. Something Raina recognized. The look of someone who knew what was coming and couldn't stop it. She'd seen that look before. In a basement in Raqqa. On the faces of 3 women who'd been waiting for someone, anyone, to walk through that door and tell them it was over. Raina had been that someone, and she'd promised herself, standing over Tommy's grave in Arlington, that she'd never watch someone suffer when she had the power to stop it. Cade turned slowly. This time he actually looked at her. "Excuse me." She said she's not interested. Raina's voice was calm. Flat. The same tone she used when briefing extraction routes. "That means you leave." Cade laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. It was the laugh of a man who'd just been challenged by something he considered beneath him. "You hear that, boys? The little college girl wants to play hero." Beta snickered from his position by the door. The youngest one cracked his knuckles, showing off. Cade took 3 steps toward Raina's booth. She didn't stand up, didn't move at all, just watched him approach with eyes that had seen things he couldn't imagine. "You should mind your own business, sweetheart. This is my business now." "Is it?" He stopped at the edge of her table, looking down at her, using his height, his size, his presence to intimidate. "You got a death wish. Is that what this is?" "No." Raina finally looked up at him. "I've just buried enough friends to know what happens when good people stay quiet." Something flickered across Cade's face. Uncertainty, just a flash there and gone. He covered it with anger. "You don't know me. You don't know what I'm capable of." "I know exactly what you're capable of." Raina's voice didn't waver. You're a small man with a big ego who thinks a woman saying no is a personal attack. You've probably never been in a real fight in your life. You pick targets who can't fight back, and you bring friends because you're too scared to face anyone alone. Silence. The diner felt smaller, tighter, like all the air had been sucked out. Cade's jaw muscles bunched, his hands curled into fists. You want to say that again? I don't repeat myself. He moved fast, grabbed the edge of the table and flipped it. Coffee cup. Cold coffee, everything crashed to the floor. Reyna was already on her feet. Not backing away. Not flinching. Standing exactly where she'd been, but upright now, balanced weight distributed on both feet, like she was ready to move in any direction. Cade noticed. Some part of his lizard brain registered that this wasn't normal. Girls didn't stand like that. Girls didn't look at him like that. He ignored it. Deke, bring her. Beta moved in from the left. Reaching for Reyna's arm, she let him grab her. His fingers closed around her bicep, and he pulled. And then he was on the floor, arm twisted behind his back at an angle that made his shoulder scream, face pressed against the linoleum, gasping. It happened so fast that Cade didn't even see the transition. 1 second Deke was standing, the next he was down, and the college girl was kneeling beside him with her knee on his spine. "Stay down," she said quietly. To Deke, not to anyone else. He stayed down. Cade stared. "What the hell?" "I told you." Reyna stood slowly, released Deke, who immediately scrambled backward on all fours. "You don't know what you're dealing with." "Jace." The youngest one was already moving, pulling something from his waistband. Brass knuckles. He came at Reyna swinging wild, untrained all adrenaline, and no technique. She sidestepped the first swing, ducked the second. On the third, she caught his wrist, rotated it sharply, and used his own momentum to drive him face first into the counter. He crumpled. The brass knuckles skittered across the floor. 2 down in 6 seconds. Cade's face had gone pale, his bravado cracking, his understanding of the world tilting beneath him like a ship taking on water. "Who the hell are you?" Reyna didn't answer. She was breathing normally, pulse steady. This wasn't even a workout. "You should leave," she said. "Take your friends. Walk out that door. Don't come back." For 1 second, she thought he might do it, might actually be smart enough to recognize when he was outmatched. She was wrong. Cade's hand went to his jacket, reached inside. The Sig Sauer came out faster than she'd expected from someone with his profile. Muscle memory. He'd drawn that weapon before. Many times. The muzzle pointed at her chest. "You think you're tough?" His voice was shaking now. Not with fear, with rage. The kind of rage that comes from humiliation, from being made small in front of his own crew. "You think being able to fight makes you bulletproof?" Reyna went still. Not frozen. Still. The difference mattered. "Put the gun down." "No." He stepped closer. "No, I don't think I will. See, you made a mistake, sweetheart. You should have stayed in your little booth and minded your own business. But you didn't. And now you're going to learn what happens when you embarrass Cade Rourke." The gun pressed against her forehead. Cold metal on skin. Maria screamed somewhere behind her. A short, sharp sound that cut off almost immediately. "Shut up!" Cade didn't take his eyes off Reyna. "Deke, get her. She's coming with us too now." Deke, still clutching his shoulder, limped toward Maria. "Don't touch her!" Reyna's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "You're not giving orders anymore." Cade pressed the barrel harder. "You're on the receiving end now. How's it feel?" She didn't answer. She was calculating. Distance 6 inches, angle 45 degrees upward, his grip right-handed thumb over thumb improper technique, index finger inside the trigger guard. Dangerous. Stupid. His stance weight forward knees locked, off balance. The safety disengaged. Time to disarm 1.2 seconds if she moved now. But Deke was grabbing Maria. And Jace was getting up from the floor, blood streaming from his nose eyes filled with the kind of hate that turns into violence. If she moved, Cade might fire reflexively. Even if the shot went wide, Maria could catch it, or Reyna could. A 9mm round at this range didn't care about training or skill. She needed a better window. "Kneel," Cade ordered. "No." The gun pressed harder, hard enough to leave a mark. "I said kneel." And I said no. His free hand grabbed her shoulder, tried to force her down. She let him push, bent her knees, went down slowly, controlled. But her eyes never left his, never blinked. That bothered him. She could see it. The way he kept expecting her to break, to beg, to cry. Every second she didn't was another crack in his confidence. That's better. He was trying to sound calm now, trying to reclaim control. "See, you can follow instructions when you want to." Reyna said nothing. "Deke, get the car. We're leaving, taking both of them." Deke hesitated. His shoulder was wrong. Dislocated, maybe. Definitely sprained. "Now!" He scrambled toward the door, dragging Maria with him. She fought, kicking, scratching. But he was bigger and meaner and hurting, and he needed someone to blame. Cade looked down at Reyna. The gun never wavered. "You should have stayed invisible, sweetheart. You should have counted your exits." "What?" She moved. Her hand came up, not toward the gun, toward his wrist, trapping it, rotating it outward while her other hand drove upward, snapping his elbow straight, breaking his structural integrity. The gun fired. The bullet went through the ceiling. Reyna's palm connected with his face before the shell casing hit the floor. Nose-first cartilage crunching, then a follow-up strike to the throat that dropped him to his knees. The Sig Sauer was in her hand now. Slide racked. Chamber checked. Magazine counted in the grip. 2 seconds. Cade was choking on the floor, blood pouring from his nose, hands clutching his throat. Jace charged at her from the side. She didn't shoot. Didn't need to. Her elbow caught his cheekbone. Her knee followed, driving into his solar plexus. He went down, gasping, curled into a ball done. Deke had frozen at the door. Maria still in his grip. Reyna raised the Sig Sauer, pointed it directly at his center mass. "Let her go." He let her go. Maria stumbled away, crying, scrambling toward the kitchen. "On your knees," Reyna ordered. "Hands behind your head." Deke obeyed. Instantly. The fight had gone out of him the moment he saw what she did to Cade. 3 men. 1 weapon. 14 seconds. And a 24-year-old woman who hadn't raised her voice once. Reyna pulled her phone from her jacket. Dialed. 911. "What's your emergency?" "Rosie's Diner. Highway 87, mile marker 42. 3 men. Attempted kidnapping assault with a deadly weapon brandishing a firearm. Suspects detained. 1 civilian unharmed. I am armed with the suspect's weapon. Send deputies." "Ma'am, can you—" "My name is Lieutenant Junior Grade Reyna Mercer, Naval Special Warfare. I'll have my credentials ready when your people arrive." She ended the call. Cade had managed to prop himself against the counter, blood still streaming down his face. His voice came out wet and ruined. You're military." Reyna looked at him, really looked for the first time. He was pathetic, bleeding on the floor of a roadside diner because he couldn't accept that a woman had the right to say no. 35 years old, and still measuring his worth by how many people he could intimidate. "Navy SEAL," she said quietly. 3 deployments, 47 successful extractions, and tonight you pointed a gun at my head and asked if I had any last words. She crouched beside him, close enough that he could see her eyes, see the absolute absence of fear in them. I didn't need last words. I just needed you to make a mistake. Cade's face crumpled, not from pain, from understanding. He'd walked into this diner thinking he was the predator. He'd been wrong. The sirens started a few minutes later, distant at first, then closer. Red and blue lights painting the parking lot through the windows. Raina stayed exactly where she was. Weapon on the counter now. Hands visible. No sudden movements. She knew how these things worked. A young woman holding a gun over 3 injured men looked bad until someone ran her credentials. Maria emerged from the kitchen. Slowly. Tear-streaked and shaking, but on her feet. You saved my life." Raina shook her head. "I just made sure you got to keep living it." "Who are you?" Before Raina could answer, the door burst open. 2 deputies' weapons drawn. "Everyone freeze hands where we can see them." Raina raised her hands. Slowly. Deliberately. "I'm Lieutenant Mercer. Navy. The weapon on the counter belongs to the man by the register. These 3 attempted to kidnap myself and the waitress. My ID is in my back pocket." The deputies exchanged glances. The older one, sergeant, judging by his insignia, approached cautiously. His partner covered the room. "Lieutenant, huh?" He didn't sound like he believed her. "You got credentials to back that up?" "Back pocket, left side. Reach slow. I'll keep my hands up." He retrieved the ID, studied it, frowned. "This says Naval Special Warfare." "That's correct." "You're a SEAL." "Yes." The deputy looked at Cade, bleeding on the floor, at Jace, still curled in a ball, at Deke, kneeling by the door like a man who'd just witnessed his own mortality. "You did this, all 3. They gave me reasons." He stared at her for a long moment, then keyed his radio. "Dispatch running a federal credential. Name is Mercer. Raina. Mercer. Naval Special Warfare." The radio crackled, a pause, then another voice. "Confirmed. Lieutenant Junior Grade Raina Mercer, SEAL Team 7. Active duty administrative leave. Federal military jurisdiction applies. Do not detain without JAG authorization." The deputy lowered his weapon. "Well," he said slowly, "I guess you are who you say you are." Raina lowered her hands. "I usually am." He almost smiled. Almost. "You want to tell me what happened here, Lieutenant?" 3 men walked in. They had history with the waitress. I asked them to leave. They didn't take it well. That's a pretty significant understatement. I'm good at those. Cade groaned from the floor. "She's crazy. Attacked us. We didn't do anything." The deputy looked at him, looked at the gun on the counter, looked at Maria still trembling by the kitchen door. "Sir, you have the right to remain silent. I strongly suggest you exercise it." More units arrived over the next hour. Crime scene techs, a detective from county, someone from the DA's office who'd apparently been woken from sleep and wasn't happy about it. Raina gave her statement 3 times, each time identical, each time calm. The detective, a tired woman in her 50s named Hernandez, sat across from her in a booth taking notes. "You said he pressed the gun to your forehead." "Yes." "And you didn't react." "I reacted. I waited for a better opportunity." Hernandez looked up from her notepad. "Most people would have panicked." "I'm not most people." "No." Hernandez set her pen down. "No, I'm starting to see that." She studied Raina for a moment. The young face, the steady hands, the eyes that had seen too much and showed too little. "How old are you, Lieutenant?" 24. 24. Hernandez shook her head. When I was 24, I was still figuring out how to parallel park. Reyna almost smiled. Almost. Different paths. I'll say. Hernandez closed her notepad. You're free to go. We'll need you available for testimony if this goes to trial, but that's months away. You got a number where we can reach you. Reyna gave it to her. As she stood to leave, Hernandez spoke again. Lieutenant, off the record, yes. Why'd you get involved? You were just passing through. You could have walked out the back. No one would have known. Reyna paused. Her hand went to her pocket, to the envelope, the letter that had been waiting 11 months to be delivered. Because I promised someone, she said quietly, that I'd never let another person die while I did nothing. She walked out before Hernandez could ask who. Outside, the air was cold. Desert cold. The kind that seeps into your bones and makes you feel every mile you've traveled. Maria was sitting on the tailgate of an ambulance, a blanket around her shoulders. An EMT was checking her vitals. Reyna approached. Slowly. Giving her space. Hey. Maria looked up. Her eyes were red. Her mascara was ruined. But she was alive. Hey. You okay? No. Maria laughed. Broken. No, I'm really not. But I will be, eventually. Reyna nodded. That was honest. She respected honest. He's been doing this for months, Maria continued. Cade, showing up at my work, following me home, leaving notes on my car. I filed reports. They said they couldn't do anything until he actually did something. He did something tonight. Because you were there. Maria's voice cracked. If you hadn't been there, I was there. That's what matters. Maria studied her face. This young woman who didn't look old enough to buy beer, but had just dismantled 3 grown men like they were made of paper. How do you do it? Stay so calm. He had a gun to your head, and you just stood there. Reyna was quiet for a moment. I've had guns pointed at me before, in worse places than a diner in New Mexico. You learn to control the fear. Use it. Fear is just information. It tells you what the threat is, what you have to overcome. But you weren't afraid at all. Yes, I was. Reyna's voice softened. I was afraid he'd hurt you. I was afraid I'd be too slow and someone innocent would die because of me. I've carried that fear for 3 years. It doesn't go away. You just learn to move through it. Maria was crying again, quietly. Thank you. I don't know how to thank you. Reyna reached out, squeezed her shoulder once. Live. That's how you thank me. Live your life. Don't let him take that from you. Don't let tonight turn you into someone who's afraid to exist. She turned to go. Wait. Maria caught her arm. I don't even know your name. Reyna. Reyna. Maria said it like she was memorizing it. I'll remember that. Don't. Reyna pulled away gently. Remember that you survived. That's what matters. She walked to her car. A 10-year-old Honda that had seen better days. The kind of car that blended in. Forgettable. Invisible. Exactly like her. She sat behind the wheel. Didn't start the engine. Just sat there in this dark, listening to the sirens and the voices and the organized chaos of a crime scene being processed. Her hand found the envelope again. Tommy's letter. Tomorrow, she'd told herself. For 11 months. But tomorrow had finally become today. Oklahoma was 12 hours away. 12 hours of desert and flatlands and silence. 12 hours to figure out what she was going to say to a mother who'd lost everything. She started the car. The diner disappeared in her rearview mirror. The lights, the sirens, the life she'd saved, and the men she'd broken. Just another night. Just another mission. Just another debt she'd never be able to repay to the teammate who'd died saving her. Raina Mercer drove into the darkness, and the letter in her pocket grew heavier with every mile. The highway stretched endless and empty. Raina hadn't slept. Couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Tommy's face. That stupid grin. The way he'd laughed at her the first day of Buds when she'd collapsed face first into the sand. Get up, Mercer. You didn't come this far to quit now. She hadn't quit. Not then. Not ever. But delivering his letter felt like the hardest mission she'd ever accepted. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Commander Hayes. She let it ring. 3 times. 4. Then she answered. Mercer, you want to tell me why I'm getting calls from the New Mexico State Police at 6 in the morning? His voice was sharp, controlled. The voice of a man who'd commanded SEAL teams for 15 years and didn't appreciate surprises. Sir, I can explain. You disarmed 3 civilians, broke one man's nose, dislocated another's shoulder, put a third in the hospital with bruised ribs. They were attempting to kidnap a woman, sir. One of them had a firearm pressed to my head. Silence on the line. You're on administrative leave, Mercer. Do you understand what that means? Yes, sir. It means you stay out of trouble. It means you don't make headlines. It means you don't give the brass any reason to question whether you're fit to return to active duty. Raina's jaw tightened. With respect, sir, I wasn't going to let them hurt her. I know. Hayes exhaled. The anger faded, replaced by something closer to exhaustion. I know you weren't. That's not the problem. What is the problem? The problem is that you're 24 years old, you've been through hell, and instead of taking time to heal, you're driving across the country picking fights with armed criminals. I didn't pick the fight. They did. And you finished it. In 14 seconds, according to the report. A pause. 14 seconds, Mercer. You know what that tells me? She didn't answer. It tells me you're still operating. Still in mission mode. Still treating every situation like a combat scenario. Maybe I am. That's not healthy. Neither is watching someone get hurt when you can stop it. Hayes was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Softer. Almost paternal. Where are you going, Raina? She gripped the steering wheel tighter. Oklahoma. Oklahoma. He understood immediately. Tommy's mother. Yes, sir. You're delivering the letter. It's been 11 months. She deserves to have it. She deserves to have her son back. The letter won't give her that. No. Raina's voice cracked, just slightly. But it's all I have left to give. Hayes didn't respond right away. She could hear him breathing on the other end, weighing his words. Raina, what happened in Raqqa wasn't your fault. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been carrying that mission on your back for almost a year. Driving around the country, avoiding the debrief counselors, refusing to talk to anyone about what happened. I talk. To who? She didn't have an answer. That's what I thought. Hayes sighed. Listen to me. Deliver the letter. Talk to Sarah Chen. Do what you need to do. But when you're done, I want you back at Coronado. We're going to have a conversation about your future. My future? You're one of the best operators I've ever trained. I'm not going to lose you to survivor's guilt. Understand? Yes, sir. Good. And Mercer, sir. Next time someone points a gun at your head, try not to put them in the hospital. The paperwork is a nightmare. He hung up before she could respond. Raina set the phone down. Her hands were shaking again, not from fear, from something she couldn't name. The sun was coming up over the horizon, orange and red bleeding across the desert sky. She had 6 more hours to Oklahoma. 6 more hours to figure out what she was going to say. The first 100 miles passed in silence. She didn't turn on the radio, didn't play music, just drove and thought and remembered. Tommy Chen had been her teammate for 2 years, her friend for longer. They'd gone through buds together, one of only 3 women in their class to make it through Hell Week, and Tommy had been the first man to treat her like an equal instead of a novelty. "You're not here because they lowered the standards," he'd told her after their first training exercise. "You're here because you're a warrior, same as the rest of us." She'd punched him in the shoulder. He'd laughed. That was Tommy. Always laughing, always finding the light in the darkest situations. Until Raqqa. The mission had been straightforward. Extract 3 American aid workers being held by a splinter ISIS cell. Intel said minimal resistance. In and out in 40 minutes. The intel was wrong. They'd walked into an ambush, 30 hostiles, heavy weapons, the extraction point compromised before they'd even reached the building. Tommy had been on point, first through the door, first to take the bullet. He'd kept fighting, kept moving. Even with the round in his gut, he'd cleared 2 rooms and secured the hostages. By the time Reyna reached him, he was propped against a wall, blood pooling beneath him, still cracking jokes. "Guess I should have zigged instead of zagged, huh? Shut up and let me work." She'd tried to stop the bleeding, tried to keep him conscious, tried to do everything her training had taught her while bullets punched through the walls around them. "Reyna," his voice had gone quiet. Calm. "Reyna, look at me. I'm getting you out of here. No, you're getting them out of here." He'd nodded toward the hostages. 3 terrified women huddled in the corner. "That's the mission. That's always been the mission. Tommy, tell my mom I love her. Tell her I was thinking about her." "You're going to tell her yourself." He'd smiled. That stupid, beautiful, infuriating smile. "You're a terrible liar, Mercer." He'd died 3 minutes later. In her arms, while she screamed for medevac that couldn't reach them. She'd completed the mission, extracted the hostages, killed 11 hostiles on the way out. And she'd carried Tommy's body for 2 miles through hostile territory because she'd refused to leave him behind. The Navy had given her a medal. She'd given it back. Reyna pulled off the highway at a gas station in the Texas Panhandle. Her tank was low. Her hands were still shaking. She filled up, paid cash, bought a bottle of water she didn't want. The clerk was a teenager. Bored. Barely looked at her. "Long drive?" "Yeah." "Where you headed?" "Oklahoma." "Family." Reyna paused, thought about it. Something like that. She was back on the road 5 minutes later. The phone buzzed again around noon. Different number this time. She didn't recognize it. "Hello? Is this Lieutenant Mercer?" Female voice. Young, professional. "Who's asking?" "My name is Detective Hernandez. We spoke last night at the diner." "I remember. I wanted to follow up. Make sure you're okay." "I'm fine." "Are you?" Hernandez's voice softened. "Because I've been doing this job for 25 years and I've never seen anyone react the way you did. Most people who've had a gun pressed to their head are shaking for days afterward. You looked like you were ordering coffee." "I've had practice." "That's what worries me." Reyna didn't respond. "Look," Hernandez continued, "I'm not trying to pry, but I've seen enough trauma to recognize it. And whatever you're carrying around, it's heavier than one night in a diner." "Detective, I appreciate the concern. I'm not done." Hernandez's tone shifted. Harder, more direct. "I did some digging this morning. Your file is mostly classified, but I found enough to know you were in Raqqa last year. I found enough to know you lost teammates. Reyna's grip on the steering wheel tightened. That's classified information. I have friends in federal law enforcement. They talk. A pause. Lieutenant, I've seen what combat does to people. My brother served 2 tours in Afghanistan. Came home a different person. Took him 5 years to find his way back. I'm not your brother. No, you're worse. Because you're still pretending everything's fine. Silence stretched between them. Why are you calling me detective? Because last night you saved a woman's life. And I think you did it because you couldn't save someone else. Someone who mattered more. Reyna didn't answer. Couldn't. I'm not a therapist, Hernandez continued. I'm not going to tell you how to process whatever you're going through. But I am going to tell you this running doesn't help. Wherever you're driving to right now, whatever you're hoping to find there, it won't fix what's broken. Only you can do that. Are you finished? Almost? Hernandez's voice gentled. You're a hero, Lieutenant. Whether you want to be or not. But heroes need help too. Remember that. She hung up. Reyna drove in silence for another hour. The Oklahoma border came faster than she expected. A sign on the highway. A change in the landscape. Nothing dramatic, just a line on a map that meant she was getting closer. Her phone's GPS directed her to a small town called Millbrook. Population 200. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone and strangers got noticed. Sarah Chen's house was on a quiet street near the edge of town. Small, well-maintained. American flag hanging from the porch. Reyna parked across the street. Killed the engine. She sat there for 10 minutes, staring at the house, at the flag, at the mailbox with Chen painted on the side in neat letters. Her hand found the envelope, pulled it out. Tommy's handwriting on the front. Mom. Just that one word. Mom. She'd read the letter once, the night after the funeral, when the whiskey wasn't enough to dull the pain. She'd read it and cried and hated herself for surviving when he didn't. Now she had to give it to the woman who'd raised him. Get out of the car, Mercer. Move. She didn't move. Coward. The word echoed in her head. Her own voice, accusing, relentless. You can disarm 3 armed men in 14 seconds, but you can't walk 30 feet to a front door. She opened the car door. The walk to the porch felt longer than any infiltration route she'd ever planned. Every step heavier than the last. She reached the door, raised her hand, hesitated. What are you going to say? Hi, Mrs. Chen. I'm the reason your son is dead. Here's a letter he wrote before I got him killed. Her hand dropped. She turned to leave. The door opened behind her. Can I help you? Reyna froze. She turned slowly. Sarah Chen stood in the doorway. 58 years old. Gray streaking her black hair. Eyes that looked like they hadn't fully smiled in a year. Tommy's eyes. Reyna's voice failed. For the first time since Raqqa, words wouldn't come. Sarah studied her. The young face, the military posture, the haunted expression that was becoming harder to hide. You served with him. It wasn't a question. Reyna nodded. You're Reyna. How did you... Tommy talked about you. Every call, every letter. Reyna did this. Reyna said that. Reyna's the toughest person I've ever met. Sarah's voice cracked slightly. I feel like I already know you. Reyna couldn't speak. Her throat had closed completely. Would you like to come in? I shouldn't. Please. Sarah stepped back from the door. I've been waiting for you. Reyna walked inside. The house smelled like jasmine tea and old books. Photographs lined the walls. Tommy as a baby. Tommy at graduation. Tommy in his dress whites, smiling that smile. Sarah led her to the living room, gestured to a couch. Sit. I'll make tea. You don't have to. I want to. Sarah disappeared into the kitchen. Raina sat, looked around. More photographs. Tommy's medals in a shadow box on the mantel. His folded flag in a glass case beneath it. She wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at her to leave. This was too much, too personal, too real. But she stayed. Sarah returned with 2 cups, set them on the coffee table, sat across from Raina. You came to give me something. Raina's hand went to her pocket, pulled out the envelope. He wrote this the night before. She couldn't finish. Sarah took the envelope, held it like it was made of glass. The night before Raqqa. Yes. Sarah didn't open it, just held it, staring at her son's handwriting. I've been waiting for this, she said quietly. I knew he'd written something. He always did before missions. Little notes, little reminders. He said it helped him focus. He gave it to me. In case he didn't come home. Yes. Sarah looked up, met Raina's eyes. Why did it take you a year? The question hit like a bullet. I'm sorry. That's not an answer. Raina's hands were shaking again. She clasped them together, tried to steady herself. I couldn't face you. I couldn't look at you and tell you that your son died and I didn't. Is that what you think? That you should have died instead? I was team lead. I was responsible. The intel was bad and I should have caught it. I should have what? Sarah's voice sharpened. Should have seen the future. Should have known there was an ambush waiting. I should have done something. You did do something. You brought him home. Sarah's eyes glistened. You carried him for 2 miles through a war zone because you refused to leave him behind. Do you have any idea what that meant to me, to know that my son wasn't left alone? Raina couldn't answer. I don't blame you, Sarah continued. I've never blamed you. Tommy knew the risks. He chose this life. And he chose you. He chose to follow you into that building because he trusted you. He shouldn't have. That wasn't his mistake to make, or yours. Sarah leaned forward. Raina, look at me. She looked. My son is dead. Nothing changes that. No amount of guilt, no amount of running, no amount of punishing yourself will bring him back. But he died doing what he loved with people he respected on a mission that saved 3 innocent lives. Sarah's voice broke. That has to mean something. It has to. Raina felt something crack inside her. Something she'd been holding together for 11 months. I held him, she whispered. At the end, he smiled. He actually smiled, and he told me to tell you he loved you. Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. He told me to make sure you knew he was thinking about you. Sarah closed her eyes. Her shoulders shook. That sounds like my Tommy. They sat in silence for a long moment. 2 women bound by a man who'd loved them both. 2 hearts broken by the same loss. Finally, Sarah opened the envelope. She read the letter slowly. Each word, each line. Her lips moved silently as she traced her son's handwriting. When she finished, she folded it carefully, held it against her chest. He knew, she said softly. He knew he might not come back. They always know. But he went anyway. That's what warriors do. Sarah looked at her, really looked, past the young face and the steady hands to the broken person underneath. You're still carrying him. I'll always carry him. No, Sarah reached out, took Raina's hand. You'll remember him. You'll honor him. But you won't carry him. That's not what he'd want. That's not what I want. How do you know what he'd want? Sarah squeezed her hand. Because he wrote about you. In every letter, every email, every phone call. He said you were the strongest person he'd ever met. He said you'd change the world someday. She smiled through her tears. He said you were going to outlive all of them. And he was glad. Raina broke. The tears came without warning, without permission. A year of grief and guilt and silence pouring out in Sarah Chen's living room while Tommy's mother held her hand. She cried for Tommy, for herself, for every mission that had cost too much. And when she was done, when the storm had passed, Sarah was still there, still holding on. Stay for dinner, Sarah said. I couldn't. Stay, please. I haven't talked about Tommy with someone who knew him in months. I need this. She paused. I think you need it too. Raina nodded. She stayed. Dinner was simple. Chicken soup, fresh bread. The kind of meal that felt like home even when home was 1,000 miles away. Sarah talked about Tommy, the real Tommy, not the seal, not the warrior, the boy who'd been afraid of thunderstorms until he was 12, the teenager who'd cried watching Old Yeller, the young man who'd called his mother every Sunday without fail, no matter where in the world he was deployed. He sent me flowers on my birthday, Sarah said, ladling more soup into Raina's bowl. Even from overseas. I still don't know how he managed it from Syria. He had connections. Raina almost smiled. Tommy could find anything anywhere. We used to joke that if the Navy ever needed something impossible, they just had to ask Chen. He got that from his father. Always networking, always knowing someone who knew someone. Tell me about his father. Sarah's expression softened. David was career Army, 22 years. He died when Tommy was 16. Heart attack during a training exercise. Tommy never told me that. He didn't like to talk about it, but I think that's why he joined the Navy instead. Wanted to serve but couldn't bear to wear the same uniform. Raina set down her spoon. He was the best operator I ever worked with, and I'm not just saying that. I know you're not. Sarah reached across the table. He said the same thing about you. They finished dinner in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that doesn't need filling, the kind that says more than words ever could. Raina helped clear the dishes, washed them by hand while Sarah dried. A simple rhythm. Domestic. Normal. She'd almost forgotten what normal felt like. You should stay the night, Sarah said, hanging the dish towel on its hook. It's late. You've been driving for hours. I couldn't impose. It's not imposing. Tommy's room is still. Sarah paused. Swallowed. I haven't changed it. I keep thinking I should, but I can't bring myself to pack away his things. Mrs. Chen, Sarah, please. Sarah. Raina turned to face her. Are you sure having me here in his room might be healing? Sarah finished for her. It might be healing. For both of us. Raina didn't argue. Tommy's room was exactly as she'd imagined. Medals on the wall, books on military history stacked on the nightstand, a worn copy of Gates of Fire that he'd read so many times the spine was cracked. She sat on the edge of his bed, ran her hand across the blanket. Hey, Tommy. Her voice was barely a whisper. I finally did it. I came. No answer. Of course, no answer. Your mom is incredible. You never told me how strong she was. I guess I should have known. She raised you. She lay back on the pillow, stared at the ceiling. I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sorry for a lot of things. Her eyes grew heavy, the exhaustion of 2 days without sleep finally catching up. "I'll try to be better. I promise." She was asleep within minutes. The dream came fast. Raqqa, the building, the ambush, Tommy on point, the door breaching, the gunfire erupting from everywhere at once. Contact left, contact right. We're boxed in. Push through mission first. Tommy falling. The blood. So much blood. "Reyna, look at me. Look at me. I'm getting you out." "No, you're getting them out. That's the mission." "Tommy, tell my mom I love her." "Tommy." She woke up screaming. Her hand was already reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Heart pounding, sweat soaking through her shirt. It took her 5 seconds to remember where she was. Tommy's room. Sarah's house. Oklahoma. Safe. She was safe. The door opened. Sarah rushed in, concern etched across her face. "Reyna, what happened? I heard you scream." "Nightmare." Reyna forced her breathing to slow. "Just a nightmare. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wake you." Sarah sat on the edge of the bed. Didn't ask for details. Didn't push. "Tommy used to have them too. When he'd come home on leave, I'd hear him at night talking in his sleep, sometimes crying. He never told me. He wouldn't. He thought it made him weak. It doesn't." "I know." Sarah smoothed the blanket absently. "But try telling that to a man who's been trained to be invincible." Reyna sat up, rubbed her face with both hands. "What time is it?" "Almost 3 in the morning." "You should go back to sleep. I'll be fine." "Will you?" The question hung in the air, not accusatory, not pitying, just honest. "I don't know," Reyna admitted. "I haven't been fine in a long time." Sarah nodded slowly. "When David died, I didn't sleep for 2 months. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, the hospital, the machines, the moment they told me he was gone." "How did you get through it?" "Time and purpose. I had Tommy to raise. I had a reason to keep going." Sarah met her eyes. "You need a reason too, Reyna. Something beyond guilt. Something beyond survival." "I don't know what that is anymore. You will. When you're ready." Sarah stood, squeezed Reyna's shoulder once. "Try to rest. We'll talk more in the morning." She left, closing the door softly behind her. Reyna didn't sleep again. She sat in the darkness, listening to the house settle, thinking about reasons and purposes and all the things she'd lost track of in the past year. At 6 a.m., her phone buzzed. Unknown number. New Mexico area code. She answered. "Mercer." "Lieutenant." The voice was male. Unfamiliar. Cold. "You made quite an impression at that diner." Reyna's senses sharpened instantly. "Who is this?" "A friend of Cade Rourke." Her jaw tightened. "Cade's in custody." "For now, but he's got people who don't appreciate what you did to him, people who take that kind of thing personally." "Is that supposed to scare me?" "It's supposed to inform you." A pause. "We know where you are, Lieutenant. Nice little town, quiet street, American flag on the porch." Reyna's blood went cold. "If you touch her..." "We're not interested in the old woman. We're interested in you. Come back to New Mexico. Turn yourself into us. Make this right. And nobody else has to get hurt. And if I don't, then things get complicated. For everyone." The line went dead. Reyna was on her feet before the dial tone finished, moving through the house, checking windows, checking doors. Sarah was in the kitchen making coffee. She looked up as Reyna burst in. "What's wrong? We need to leave, now." What? Why? The men from the diner. They found me. They know I'm here. Sarah's face paled, but her voice stayed steady. How? I don't know. Traced my phone. Followed my route. It doesn't matter how. What matters is we're not safe here. This is my home. I'm not leaving my home because some criminals made threats. Sarah, these aren't ordinary criminals. They're connected, organized, and they just told me they'd hurt you to get to me. Let them try. This isn't a debate. Raina's voice cracked. I just got one person I care about killed. I'm not going to let it happen again. The words hung between them. Raw, honest, terrifying. Sarah set down her coffee cup. What do you need me to do? Pack a bag. Essentials only. We're going to the police station. You'll be safe there until you can fight them alone, if I have to. No. Sarah's voice hardened. Absolutely not. You're not sacrificing yourself for me. That's not how this works. Sarah, I said no. She stepped closer. Tommy died protecting people. I'm not going to let his teammate die the same way. Not on my watch. Raina's phone buzzed again. Text message this time. You have 1 hour. After that we come to you. She showed it to Sarah. 1 hour. We need to move. They were in Raina's car within 10 minutes. Sarah had grabbed a small bag, a photo album, and nothing else. Where are we going? She asked, as Raina pulled away from the house. Police station first. I need to make some calls. And then I end this. The Millbrook Police Department was small. 3 officers on duty. A dispatcher who looked like she'd been working the night shift for 20 years. Raina explained the situation in clipped, precise sentences, showed them the text messages, gave them the phone number. Officer Martinez, a stocky man in his 40s, listened with growing concern. You're saying these men followed you from New Mexico? Yes. And they're threatening Mrs. Chen to get to you? Yes. Ma'am, with respect, this sounds like something for the FBI. We're a 3-man department in a town of 3,000 people. I know. That's why I need you to keep her safe while I make contact with federal authorities. Martinez exchanged glances with his colleagues. We can do that. But what about you? I can handle myself. The way you handled those 3 men at the diner. Raina didn't answer. Martinez sighed. Look, I've been a cop for 20 years. I've seen a lot of tough people walk through that door. But tough doesn't stop bullets. Neither does hiding. She turned to Sarah. Stay here. Don't leave until I come back, or send word. Raina, promise me. Sarah's eyes glistened. You're just like him. Stubborn, reckless, ready to throw yourself into danger for people you barely know. I know you. Now promise me. I promise. Sarah grabbed her hand. But you promise me something too. You promise me you'll come back. Raina squeezed her hand once. I'll try. She walked out before Sarah could respond. The hour was almost up. Raina drove to the edge of town, parked near an abandoned grain silo where the roads converged. Open ground, clear sight lines. If they wanted her, they'd have to come get her. Her phone rang. Same unknown number. You're early, the voice said. I like that. Where are you? Close, very close. She heard engines. 2 vehicles approaching from the west. Black SUVs. Tinted windows. I see you brought friends. Insurance, you understand. The SUVs stopped 50 yards away. Doors opened. 6 men emerged. All armed. All professional. This wasn't Cade Rourke's amateur crew. These were soldiers. Mercenaries, maybe. The kind of men who killed for money and slept fine afterward. The phone crackled one more time. Step out of the vehicle, Lieutenant. Hands where we can see them. Reyna stepped out. 6 guns trained on her instantly. I'm unarmed. We'll verify that shortly. A 7th man emerged from the lead SUV, older than the others, gray at his temples, expensive suit that looked out of place in rural Oklahoma. He walked toward her slowly, confidently. Lieutenant Mercer, I've heard a lot about you. I can't say the same. My name is Victor Hale. I employ Mr. Rourke and his associates. They handle certain matters for me in the Southwest. Collections, enforcement, the occasional message delivery. And now one of your employees is in jail because he picked the wrong woman to threaten. Yes, that was unfortunate. Hale stopped 10 feet away. Do you know what Cade is facing? Assault with a deadly weapon? Attempted kidnapping. Multiple federal charges because you turned out to be military. Sounds like a personal problem. It's a business problem. Cade knows things, names, locations, transactions. If he decides to cooperate with prosecutors, my entire operation becomes vulnerable. Still sounds like a personal problem. Hale smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. I admire your courage, Lieutenant. Truly. But you've put me in a difficult position. Cade's arrest has attracted attention I can't afford. And the only way to fix that is to send a message. What kind of message? The kind that reminds people what happens when they interfere with my business. Reyna felt the shift in the air, the tightening of fingers on triggers, the barely perceptible movement of men preparing to fire. You're going to kill me. I'm going to make an example of you. There's a difference. And Sarah Chen, collateral damage. Regrettable, but necessary. Something ignited inside Reyna. Something that had been dormant since Raqqa. Not fear. Not panic. Rage. You threatened a 60-year-old woman who's never done anything to anyone. A woman who already lost her son to war. And you think that makes you powerful? I think it makes me pragmatic. It makes you a coward. Hale's smile faded. Bill her. The first shot came from behind her. Not at her. Past her. One of Hale's men dropped. Then another. Reyna hit the ground instinctively, rolling toward the nearest SUV for cover. More shots echoed across the open field. Controlled. Precise. Sniper fire. She risked a glance toward the tree line, saw movement, multiple positions. Someone else was here. Hale was screaming orders, his men scattered, trying to find cover, trying to locate the source of the attack. Another man fell. Then another. Reyna saw her opening. She moved. The nearest gunman was distracted, looking toward the trees. She closed the distance in 3 seconds, stripped his weapon, used his own momentum to drive him to the ground. Disarm. Control. Neutralize. The rifle was in her hands now. Familiar weight. Familiar balance. She fired twice, 2 more down. Hale was running toward his SUV. She tracked him, lined up the shot. Federal agents, everyone on the ground, the voice boomed across the field. More vehicles appeared. FBI tactical units, sirens. Hale froze, looked around, realized he was surrounded. Reyna kept her weapon trained on him. On your knees, now! He sank slowly, hands raised, the arrogance draining from his face. You don't understand. You don't know who I am, what I can do. I know exactly what you are. Reyna's voice was ice. You're a man who thought a gun made him invincible. Just like Cade. Just like everyone else who's ever pointed a weapon at someone they considered weak. She stepped closer. But I'm not weak. And neither was Sarah Chen. And neither was her son, who gave his life so that people like you could sleep safe at night. I'll have you killed. You'll spend the rest of your life in federal prison wondering how a 24-year-old woman in a hoodie brought down your entire operation." The FBI agents moved in, surrounded Hale, dragged him to his feet. One of them approached Reyna. Tall, serious, badge visible. "Lieutenant Mercer." "Yes." "Special Agent Reynolds. We've been tracking Hale's organization for 2 years. When we intercepted that phone call this morning, we scrambled everything we had." "You were listening." "Your commander called us, said you might need backup, said you were too stubborn to ask for it yourself." Reyna almost laughed. Hayes. Of course it was Hayes. "Is Mrs. Chen safe?" "She's at the station, asking about you every 5 minutes." "Tell her I'm fine. Tell her I'll be there soon." Reynolds nodded. "Lieutenant, I have to say that was the most impressive thing I've seen in 15 years with the Bureau. 6 armed men, and you took out 3 of them in under 10 seconds. "I had help." "Barely. Our sniper team only dropped 4 before you went active." He paused. "Where did you learn to move like that?" Reyna looked at him. "I'm a Navy SEAL. It's what we do." She walked away before he could ask anything else. The drive back to the police station felt longer than it should have. The adrenaline was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. When she walked through the doors, Sarah was waiting. The older woman crossed the room in 4 steps and pulled Reyna into a hug so fierce it nearly knocked her off balance. "I thought I lost you too." "You didn't. I'm here. You stupid, brave, reckless girl." Sarah was crying, laughing. Both at once. "Tommy would be so proud of you, and so furious." "Probably more furious. Definitely more furious." They stood there for a long moment, holding on to each other, holding on to something neither of them could name. Officer Martinez approached slowly, respectful of the moment. "Lieutenant, the FBI wants to debrief you. They said it can wait until morning if you need rest." "It can wait." "Yes, ma'am. Also, there's about a dozen news vans setting up outside. Word travels fast in small towns." "Keep them out." "Already done." Sarah finally released her, looked at her face. "You're hurt." Reyna touched her cheek, felt the scrape she hadn't noticed until now. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing. Come on, I'm going to clean that up, and then you're going to sleep for 12 hours, no arguments." "Sarah?" "I said no arguments." The older woman's voice was firm, maternal, the voice of someone who'd been giving orders to stubborn military types for decades. Reyna didn't argue. She let Sarah lead her to a chair, let her clean the wound, let her fuss and worry and mother. And somewhere in that moment, surrounded by the chaos of a day that should have killed her, Reyna Mercer felt something shift. Not peace. Not yet. But the first fragile hint of it. The beginning of something that might eventually feel like healing. She slept for 14 hours. No dreams, no nightmares, just deep, black, empty sleep that pulled her under like an ocean current and didn't let go until her body had taken everything it needed. When she finally opened her eyes, Sarah was sitting in a chair beside the bed, reading a worn paperback. "Welcome back." Reyna sat up slowly. Every muscle ached. The scrape on her cheek throbbed. "What time is it?" "Almost noon. You've been out since yesterday afternoon." "Yesterday." She rubbed her face. "The FBI..." "Still waiting. I told them you'd talk when you were ready, and they agreed." Sarah set down her book. "Agent Reynolds has been very accommodating. Apparently taking down a major crime syndicate earns you some patience." Reyna swung her legs over the side of the bed. "I need to give my statement. You need to eat first, and shower, and act like a human being for 5 minutes before you go back into operator mode." "Sarah..." "Don't Sarah me. I've been managing stubborn military types since before you were born. You'll eat breakfast. That's not negotiable." Reyna almost smiled. "You sound like my drill instructor." "Good. He clearly did something right." Breakfast was eggs and toast and orange juice that Sarah had somehow procured from a local cafe. Reyna ate mechanically at first, then realized she was starving and devoured everything on the plate. Sarah watched her with quiet satisfaction. "When's the last time you had a real meal?" "I had soup at your house." "Before that?" Reyna had to think. "I don't remember." "That's what I thought." Sarah refilled her juice glass. "You can't run on adrenaline forever, Reyna. Your body keeps score even when your mind pretends it doesn't." "I know." "Do you? Because from what I've seen, you've been treating yourself like a machine for the past year. Machines break down. People do too." Reyna set down her fork. "I didn't have time to think about it. If I stopped moving, I'd have to feel everything, and I wasn't ready for that." "Are you ready now?" The question hit deeper than it should have. "I don't know. Maybe." Sarah reached across the table, squeezed her hand. "That's the most honest thing you've said since you got here." The FBI debrief happened at 2 o'clock in the Millbrook Police Station's only conference room. Agent Reynolds sat across from her with a digital recorder and a thick folder. 2 other agents flanked him, taking notes. "Lieutenant Mercer, I want to start by thanking you for your cooperation. What happened yesterday was extraordinary." "It was survival." "It was more than that." Reynolds opened his folder. "Victor Hale has been on our radar for 8 years. Human trafficking, drug distribution, money laundering. We've never been able to get close enough to build a case that would stick. And now we have him on attempted murder of a federal service member conspiracy and about a dozen other charges, combined with what Cade Rourke is willing to testify to in exchange for a reduced sentence. We're looking at dismantling his entire network." Reyna's jaw tightened. Rourke is cooperating. Enthusiastically, apparently being abandoned by his employer while facing federal charges made him reconsider his loyalties. He pointed a gun at my head. "I know, and he'll still face significant prison time, but his testimony is essential to putting away the people above him." Reyna leaned back in her chair. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface, but she understood strategic compromises. She'd made enough of them in her career. "What do you need from me?" "Your statement. On the record. Everything that happened at the diner, everything that happened yesterday, and anything else that might be relevant." "All right." She talked for 2 hours. Every detail. Every moment. Reynolds listened without interruption, occasionally jotting notes. When she finished, he closed his folder. "Lieutenant, I have to ask. When Hale's men had you surrounded when you were outnumbered 6-1 with no backup in sight, what were you thinking?" Reyna considered the question. "I was thinking about Sarah Chen. I was thinking about Tommy. I was thinking about every person who's ever been threatened by men who believed their power made them untouchable. And I was thinking that I'd rather die fighting than live knowing I didn't try." Reynolds nodded slowly. "That's exactly what I expected you to say." "Is that a problem?" "No." He almost smiled. "It's why you're still alive." The media circus started that evening. Someone had leaked her name, probably one of Hale's associates trying to redirect attention. Within hours, news vans lined the street outside the police station. Navy SEAL heroine takes down crime boss. 24-year-old woman defeats armed attackers. The girl who wouldn't kneel. Reyna watched the headlines scroll across a television in the station's break room. Her stomach churned. "You're famous," Martinez said, handing her a cup of coffee. "I don't want to be famous." "Little late for that." Officer Martinez was a good man. Reyna had figured that out within the first 5 minutes of meeting him. Decent, hard-working, the kind of cop who actually cared about the people he served. Is there a back exit? There is, but Reynolds wants you to consider giving a statement to the press. Absolutely not. That's what I told him you'd say. Martinez sipped his own coffee. But he made a point. Right now the story is being shaped by other people. Hale's lawyers, the networks, social media speculation. If you don't say something, they'll say it for you. Let them. Even if what they say is wrong. Reyna turned away from the television. What are they saying? Different things. Some are calling you a hero. Others are questioning whether you used excessive force. A few are suggesting you were working with Hale, and this was all some kind of setup. That's insane. Welcome to the news cycle. Martinez shrugged. Look, I'm not telling you what to do, but sometimes controlling the narrative is as important as controlling the situation. You know that better than anyone. She did know. Special operations training included media management, how to handle press attention, how to shape public perception. But knowing something and wanting to do it were different things. I'll think about it. Sarah found her on the station's back steps an hour later. Hiding, breathing. Same thing sometimes. Sarah sat beside her. I used to hide on our back porch when Tommy was deployed. Couldn't stand being inside waiting for news. The porch felt safer somehow, like if I stayed there nothing bad could reach me. Did it work? Never. But I kept doing it anyway. They sat in silence for a moment. The evening was cooling down. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. The FBI wants me to make a statement, Reyna said finally. I know, Agent Reynolds mentioned it. I don't want to be a public figure. I understand. People are calling me a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and knew how to fight back. Sarah turned to look at her. You really believe that? Yes. Then you're wrong. Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. Reyna, you walked into that diner and saw a woman in trouble. You could have looked away. Most people do. But you didn't. You put yourself between Maria and those men knowing it might cost you everything. Training? Instinct? No, character. Training teaches you how to fight. Instinct tells you when to move. But character decides whether you step forward or step back. And you stepped forward. Reyna didn't respond. Couldn't. Tommy would have done the same thing, Sarah continued. It's why he became a SEAL. Not for the glory or the adventure, because he couldn't stand the idea of people suffering when he had the power to help. He was better than me. He was just like you. That's why he loved you. Reyna's breath caught. What? Sarah smiled sadly. He never told you. He was waiting for the right moment. But I knew. A mother always knows. Sarah. He talked about you constantly. Reyna's the strongest person I've ever met. Reyna never quits. Reyna makes everyone around her better. I teased him about it once. Asked if he was going to marry you. What did he say? He said he was going to ask, after Raqqa. He had this whole plan. Take you to California. Walk on the beach at sunset. Say something stupid and romantic that he'd probably mess up. Tears burned Reyna's eyes. She blinked them back. I didn't know. I know. He wanted to surprise you. Sarah took her hand. When he died, I lost my son. But you lost something too. And I think you've been punishing yourself for surviving ever since. How do I stop? By living. By letting yourself feel something other than guilt. By accepting that what happened wasn't your fault, and that Tommy would want you to be happy. I don't know how to be happy anymore. You learn, one day at a time, one choice at a time. Sarah squeezed her hand. Starting now. Raina's phone rang. She looked at the screen. Commander Hayes. I need to take this. Of course. She walked a few steps away before answering. Commander? Mercer, I just got off the phone with the FBI. They're calling you a hero. So I've heard. You sound thrilled. I'm exhausted. Hayes chuckled. That's the most honest answer you've ever given me. His tone shifted. Listen, I wanted to call personally. What you did out there taking on Hale's organization, protecting Sarah Chen, that's exactly the kind of operator I always knew you were. I was just doing what needed to be done. That's what the best of us always say. A pause. How are you holding up? And don't give me the standard answer. I want the truth. Raina looked back at Sarah, still sitting on the steps. I'm better. I think. Better than I was anyway. Good. That's good. Hayes cleared his throat. When you're ready, we need to talk about your future. You've got options, Raina. More than you know. What kind of options? Leadership track, training command, maybe something with the Joint Task Force. You've proven yourself beyond any doubt. The brass wants to promote you. Promote me? You sound surprised. I expected them to want me gone. After the press attention, the complications. The complications saved lives and took down a criminal enterprise. The brass appreciates results. Hayes paused again. But that's a conversation for later. Right now you need to focus on recovery. Both kinds. Both kinds. Physical and psychological. I'm scheduling you for a debrief with our counseling team when you get back. Non-negotiable this time. Commander, non-negotiable Mercer. You've been carrying Raqqa for too long. It's time to put some of that weight down. She wanted to argue. Wanted to insist she was fine. But she wasn't fine. And maybe it was time to stop pretending. Yes, sir. Good. Take your time in Oklahoma. Sarah Chen is good people. Let her take care of you for a few days. That's an order. Understood. And Mercer, sir, I'm proud of you. Tommy would be too. He hung up before she could respond. The next morning, Maria called. Raina almost didn't answer. She didn't recognize the number, and after everything that had happened, unknown callers made her nervous. But something told her to pick up. Hello. Lieutenant Mercer. This is Maria from the diner. Raina sat up straighter. Maria, are you okay? I'm okay. I mean, I'm better. Thanks to you. The young woman's voice was shaky but determined. I wanted to call and say thank you, in person, but I didn't know where you were, and the police wouldn't give me your number, so I had to go through Agent Reynolds, and he finally, Maria, it's okay. Slow down. A shaky breath on the other end. Sorry, I'm nervous. I've been practicing what to say for 2 days, and now I can't remember any of it. Despite everything, Raina smiled. Just say what's on your mind. Okay. Maria paused, gathered herself. You saved my life. I know people say that as a figure of speech, but I mean it literally. Cade Rourke was going to hurt me, really hurt me, maybe kill me. And you stopped him. Anyone would have. No, they wouldn't have. Maria's voice hardened. I've been dealing with Cade for months. Everyone in town knew what he was. The cops, the business owners, my own boss. They all looked the other way because they were scared. You're the first person who stood up. Raina didn't know how to respond. I watched you, Maria continued. When he had that gun to your head. I thought you were going to die. I thought we were both going to die. But you didn't even blink. You just stood there like you were waiting for something. I was waiting for an opening. I know. I understand that now. But in that moment, I thought I was watching the bravest person I'd ever seen. And I was right. Maria, let me finish. Please. Another breath. I've been a victim my whole life. My dad, my ex-boyfriend, Cade. Men who thought they could push me around because I was small and quiet and scared. But when I saw you fight back, when I saw you refuse to kneel, something changed in me. What changed? I stopped believing I was powerless. For the first time in my life, I realized that being scared doesn't mean you can't fight. It just means you have something to lose. Raina closed her eyes. Maria's words hit her harder than any punch ever had. That's the bravest thing anyone's ever said to me. I learned it from you. Maria's voice softened. I'm going back to school, Lieutenant. I enrolled yesterday. Criminal justice. I want to help people the way you helped me. Maria, that's incredible. It wouldn't have happened without you. I'd still be hiding, still be waiting for someone else to save me. A pause. You showed me that I could save myself. And I'll never forget that. Raina felt tears threatening again. She blinked them back. You're going to change the world, Maria. I believe that. Maybe. But you changed mine first. They talked for another 20 minutes. About Maria's plans. About the trial coming up. About life after trauma. And how to rebuild when everything you knew had been shattered. By the time they hung up, Raina felt something she hadn't felt in a year. Hope. That afternoon, Reynolds came to see her one final time. Lieutenant, I have some news. Good or bad, depends on your perspective. He sat across from her in Sarah's living room. Hale's lawyers are offering a deal. Full confession in exchange for life without parole instead of the death penalty. The death penalty was on the table. For a federal service member, absolutely, his attempt on your life qualifies. Raina considered this. What happens to his organization? Dismantled. We've already arrested 15 associates in 3 states. More are coming. His entire network is collapsing. And Cade Rourke, 20 years, no parole. He'll testify against Hale in exchange for keeping his sentence in a medium security facility. He should rot. He will. 20 years in federal prison isn't a vacation. Reynolds leaned forward. Lieutenant, I know this isn't the justice you wanted. In a perfect world, every one of these men would face maximum consequences. But the deal ensures Hale never walks free again. That's something. It's something, Raina agreed quietly. Not enough, but something. Reynolds stood to leave, paused at the door. For what it's worth, Lieutenant, in 15 years with the Bureau, I've never seen anyone handle a situation the way you did. Not agents, not military, no one. I had good training. You had more than training. You had something you were fighting for. He met her eyes. Don't lose that. Whatever comes next, don't lose that. He left without waiting for a response. That evening, Sarah cooked dinner again. This time, Raina helped. Chopping vegetables, stirring pots. Simple tasks that required no thought, but filled the silence with purpose. You're leaving tomorrow, Sarah said. It wasn't a question. How did you know? I saw the way you looked at your phone after Reynolds left. The world is calling you back. Raina set down her knife. I don't want to go. Yes, you do. And that's okay. Sarah smiled. You have a life, Raina. A career. People who need you. This was never meant to be permanent. It could be. I could stay. Help you with the house. Make sure you're safe. I've been taking care of myself for 58 years. I think I'll manage. Sarah touched her cheek. But I want you to promise me something. Anything. Come back. Not for my sake. For yours. This house, this town. It can be a place you return to. A place that grounds you. Somewhere you belong when the world gets too heavy. Raina's throat tightened. I'd like that. Then it's settled. You'll visit. Holidays, birthdays, whenever you need to remember who you are. Who am I? Sarah pulled her into a hug. Your family. You always were. Tommy knew it. I knew it. Now you know it too. They held each other for a long moment, and for the first time in 11 months, Raina Mercer felt like she had somewhere to come home to. The morning came too fast. Raina stood beside her car bag, packed keys in hand. Sarah waited on the porch, arms crossed, trying to smile, and failing. You have everything. Everything I came with. That's not much. It never is. They stood in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that holds more than words ever could. Drive safe, Sarah finally said. And call me when you get to California. I don't care what time it is. I will. I mean it, Raina. If I don't hear from you by tomorrow night, I'm calling your commander. Despite everything, Raina laughed. You'd do it too. Damn right I would. She walked to the porch, pulled Sarah into one last embrace. Thank you. For everything. Thank you for bringing him back to me, even if it was just through you. Raina pulled away before the tears could start again. She'd cried more in the past 3 days than she had in the entire previous year. She got in the car, started the engine, looked at Sarah through the window. The older woman raised her hand. A wave. A blessing. A goodbye that wasn't really goodbye. Raina drove away. The first hour was quiet. She didn't turn on the radio, didn't make calls, just drove and thought and processed everything that had happened. In 3 days, she'd delivered a letter she'd been carrying for 11 months. She'd taken down a crime syndicate. She'd almost died twice. And she'd found something she'd lost in Raqqa. Purpose. Not the mission-driven purpose she'd known as a SEAL. Something different. Something personal. A reason to keep going that didn't involve guilt or obligation or the desperate need to outrun her own memories. Her phone rang around noon. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then she remembered Maria. Remembered that sometimes unknown calls brought unexpected blessings. Hello. Lieutenant Mercer. The voice was unfamiliar. Male. Professional. Who's calling? My name is Michael Torres. I'm a producer with CBS News. I was hoping to speak with you about what happened in New Mexico. Raina's jaw tightened. I'm not interested in interviews. I understand. But before you hang up, I want you to know this isn't about sensationalizing your story. We're doing a piece on women in special operations, the barriers they face, the contributions they make. Your experience would be invaluable. My experience isn't a talking point. No, it's not. But it could be an inspiration. Torres paused. Lieutenant, do you know how many young women contact our network asking about military careers? Thousands. Every year. Most of them are told they can't. They're not strong enough. Not tough enough. Not capable of doing what men do. That's their problem. It's everyone's problem. Because those women never get the chance to prove themselves. They never see someone who looks like them doing the impossible. Another pause. You did the impossible. Multiple times. And if even one young woman sees your story and thinks, maybe I can do that too, isn't that worth something? Raina didn't respond immediately. She thought about buds. The instructors who'd told her she didn't belong. The classmates who'd bet against her survival. The system that had been designed by men for men with no consideration for anyone else. She'd made it through anyway, not because the system changed, because she refused to break. I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking. You have my number now. Call me if you decide you want to talk. He hung up. Raina kept driving. The California border came the next morning. She'd stopped once for gas and coffee, slept for 4 hours at a rest stop, then pushed through the night. The ocean appeared on her left as she merged onto the Pacific Coast Highway. Home, or something like it. Coronado Naval Base was exactly as she'd left it. Guards at the gate, buildings that all looked the same, the smell of salt water and diesel fuel that she'd missed without realizing it. She parked outside the administrative building, sat in her car for a long moment. This was it, the moment she'd been avoiding for 11 months. Going back meant facing everything, the debrief, the counseling, the looks from teammates who knew what had happened in Raqqa. Going back meant admitting she needed help. Her phone buzzed. Text from Hayes. "I see your car. Stop stalling and get in here." She almost smiled. Commander Hayes' office was smaller than she remembered. Or maybe she'd just grown. He stood when she entered. Didn't salute, didn't shake her hand. He hugged her. It was brief, professional. But it was real. "Welcome back, Mercer." "Thank you, sir." "Sit down. We have a lot to discuss." She sat. He returned to his desk. The formality resumed, but something had shifted between them. "I read the FBI report," he said, "all 60 pages of it. That must have been thrilling. It was impressive. Hale's organization was one of the most sophisticated criminal networks in the Southwest. You dismantled it in 48 hours. I had help. You had backup. That's different." Hayes leaned forward. "The Bureau is recommending you for a commendation. So is the Justice Department. And I've received calls from 3 separate congressional offices asking about your service record. Congressional offices. Apparently taking down a crime boss makes you interesting to politicians." He paused. "There's talk of a medal, Mercer. A real one this time." "I don't want a medal." "I know. I told them that." Hayes studied her face. "What do you want?" The question caught her off guard. "I don't know anymore. I used to know. I used to want to be the best operator in the teams, the one they called when things went wrong, the one who always completed the mission. And now I want to stop feeling like every breath I take is borrowed from someone who deserved it more." Silence stretched between them. Hayes stood, walked to the window, looked out at the base for a long moment. "Do you know why I recruited you, Mercer? Out of all the candidates that year, why I pushed for you specifically? Because I was qualified. Lots of people were qualified. I recruited you because you were different, not just skilled, different. The way you moved, the way you thought, the way you looked at problems like they were puzzles waiting to be solved." He turned back to face her. "But more than that, I recruited you because of your heart. Because in every simulation, every training exercise, every scenario we threw at you, you made the same choice. You protected people, even when it cost you. Even when it would have been easier to think only about yourself. That's not special. That's the job." "No. The job is completing the mission. What you do is something more." Hayes sat on the edge of his desk. "Reyna, what happened in Raqqa wasn't your fault. I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it until you believe it. The intel was bad. The ambush was unavoidable. You did everything right, and your people still died." "Tommy still died." "Yes, he did. And it broke something in you." Hayes's voice softened. "I've watched you for the past 11 months. Watched you pull away from the team. Refuse counseling. Drive around the country like you were looking for something you'd never find. What was I looking for? Redemption. Punishment. Permission to keep living." He paused. "Did you find it?" Reyna thought about Sarah. About Maria. About the letter finally delivered and the words finally spoken. "I found something. I don't know if it's what I was looking for, but it's a start. That's enough." Hayes stood again. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to meet with our counseling team. Not once, not twice, as many times as they recommend. You're going to actually talk this time, not just sit there in silence waiting for the hour to end. Sir, I'm not finished. After that, when they clear you, we're going to discuss your next assignment. I wasn't lying about the options, Mercer. Leadership track, training command, joint operations. You've earned the right to choose. And if I choose to stay in the field, then you stay in the field. But not until you're ready. Not until you've dealt with what you're carrying. His eyes held hers. That's not negotiable. Raina wanted to argue, wanted to insist she was fine, that she didn't need therapy, that she could handle everything on her own. But she'd been handling everything on her own for a year, and it had almost destroyed her. Yes, sir. Good. Hayes almost smiled. Now get out of my office. You have appointments to keep. The counselor's name was Dr. Patricia Vance. She was 62 years old, had worked with special operations personnel for 3 decades, and had eyes that seemed to see through every defense Raina tried to construct. Lieutenant Mercer, it's good to finally meet you. Likewise, ma'am. Please, Patricia, or Pat if you prefer. She gestured to a chair. Make yourself comfortable. Raina sat. The chair was deliberately soft, designed to relax. She stayed rigid anyway. I understand you've been reluctant to engage with counseling services. I've been busy. For 11 months. Raina didn't answer. Let me tell you something about myself, Lieutenant. I've sat across from operators like you for 30 years. SEALs, Delta, Rangers, Green Berets, men and women who've seen and done things that would break most people. And every single one of them walked in here convinced they didn't need help. Did they? Every single one. Patricia leaned forward. Here's what I've learned. The strongest warriors aren't the ones who refuse to feel pain. They're the ones who acknowledge the pain and keep fighting anyway. That takes more courage than any combat mission. With respect, ma'am, you don't know what combat is like. You're right, I don't. But I know what trauma looks like, and I know that you've been drowning in it for a year. The words hit harder than they should have. I'm not drowning. No. Then why did you drive 2,000 miles to deliver a letter you could have mailed? Why did you put yourself between 3 armed men and a woman you'd never met? Why did you face down a crime syndicate alone instead of waiting for backup? Because it was the right thing to do. Or because you were looking for a reason to die. Silence. Complete, devastating silence. That's not true. Isn't it? Patricia's voice was gentle, not accusatory. Lieutenant survivors of traumatic loss often engage in high-risk behavior. It's a way of testing fate, daring the universe to take them too. They don't consciously want to die, but they stop caring whether they live. Raina's hands were shaking. She clasped them together. I cared about Maria, about Sarah Chen, about the mission. I believe you. But did you care about yourself? She couldn't answer. Raina. Patricia used her first name deliberately. Tommy Chen died. Your teammates died. And you survived. That's not a punishment. It's not a mistake. It's what happened. The question is, what are you going to do with the life you still have? I don't know. That's okay. That's what we're here to figure out. Patricia sat back. I'm not going to fix you in one session. I'm not going to give you a magic formula that makes the pain disappear. What I'm going to do is help you learn to carry it, to honor your teammates by living fully, not by dying slowly. How? One conversation at a time. One truth at a time. One day at a time. Raina looked at this woman she'd just met, this civilian who had never fired a weapon, or cleared a room, or held a dying friend in her arms. but she'd helped hundreds of warriors find their way back from the darkness. Maybe she could help one more. Okay. Okay, what? Okay, I'll try. I'll actually try this time. Patricia smiled. That's all I ask. The weeks that followed were the hardest of Raina's life. Harder than Bud-S, harder than Hell Week, harder than any mission she'd ever completed. Because this time the enemy was inside her own head. She met with Patricia 3 times a week, talked about Raka, about Tommy, about the guilt that had been eating her alive for 11 months. She talked about her father who'd left when she was 7, about her mother who'd worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat, about the anger she'd carried since childhood, the desperate need to prove herself to be stronger than anyone expected. She talked about the men she'd killed, the lives she'd taken in service to her country, the faces that still visited her dreams. She talked until there was nothing left to say. And then she talked some more. Slowly, something began to shift. The nightmares didn't stop, but they came less often. And when they came, she knew what to do. Breathe, ground herself. Remember that she was safe. The guilt didn't disappear, but it loosened its grip, became something she could carry instead of something that crushed her. She started training again, running, swimming, pushing her body to its limits the way she always had. But now she did it because she wanted to live, not because she wanted to escape. 3 months after returning to Coronado, she got a call from Maria. Lieutenant Mercer, I passed my first semester. Maria, that's incredible, 3.7 GPA. My professor says I have natural instincts for criminal investigation. Maria's voice was bright, happy, unrecognizable from the terrified woman in that diner. I wanted you to be the first to know. I'm honored. There's more. I've been talking to a recruiter about the Navy. Raina almost dropped the phone. What? Not SEALs, I'm not that crazy. But military police. Maybe JAG Corps eventually. I want to help people the way you helped me. Maria, the military is a serious commitment. It's not, I know what it is. I've done my research. I've talked to veterans. I understand what I'm signing up for. Maria paused. You showed me that strength isn't about not being afraid. It's about acting anyway. I want to learn how to do that. Really learn. Raina closed her eyes, thought about the woman Maria had been, the woman she was becoming. If that's what you want, I'll support you. Whatever you need. Thank you. That means everything. But Maria, yes, call me Raina. I think we're past formalities. She could hear the smile in Maria's voice. Okay, Raina, I'll call you after basic, if I survive. You'll survive. You already proved you could. The line clicked off. Raina stood there for a long moment, holding her phone, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not in herself. In someone else. That evening she called Michael Torres. Mr. Torres, this is Lieutenant Raina Mercer. Lieutenant, I didn't expect to hear from you. Neither did I. She took a breath. I've reconsidered your offer. About the interview. Silence on the line. Then, you want to do it? I want to tell my story, the real story, not the sensationalized version, not the hero narrative. The truth. The truth is what we're looking for. Then let's talk. The interview aired 6 weeks later. Raina watched it with Patricia in her office. Saw herself on screen talking about buds, about combat, about losing teammates and surviving when others didn't. She talked about the diner, about Sarah Chen, about delivering Tommy's letter and finding something she didn't know she was looking for. She talked about therapy, about the stigma around mental health in the military, about the importance of asking for help when you need it. When it was over, Patricia turned off the television. How do you feel? Exposed. Vulnerable. Like I just stripped naked in front of the entire country. And Raina thought about it. And okay, I think I'm okay. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of messages poured in from around the country. Women who wanted to serve, veterans struggling with their own trauma, parents who wanted their children to hear her story. One message stood out. Dear Lieutenant Mercer, my name is Emily. I'm 17 years old. I've wanted to join the military since I was 12, but everyone tells me I'm not strong enough, that women don't belong in combat roles, that I should find something safer. But then I saw your interview. And I realized that every person who told me I couldn't was wrong. If you could do it, maybe I can too. Thank you for showing me what's possible. Raina read it 3 times. Then she wrote back. Dear Emily, you are strong enough. You do belong. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And when you're ready, I'll be here to help you prove them wrong. The promotion came through in the spring. Lieutenant Commander Raina Mercer, 25 years old. The youngest woman to hold that rank in SEAL history. The ceremony was small. Just her team Commander Hayes and 1 civilian guest. Sarah Chen sat in the front row crying without shame, wearing a gold star pin that had belonged to Tommy. After the formalities, Sarah pulled her aside. He would be so proud. You know that, right? I know. Do you believe it? Raina looked at the woman who'd become family, the woman who'd lost everything and still found room in her heart to love a stranger. I'm starting to. That's progress, Sarah hugged her. I'm flying home tomorrow, but I expect you at Thanksgiving. No excuses. I'll be there. You'd better be. I'm making Tommy's favorite, Kung Pao chicken. He always said mine was better than any restaurant. I remember. He talked about it constantly. Of course he did. That boy never shut up about food. Sarah laughed through her tears. Take care of yourself, Lieutenant Commander. That's an order from your honorary mother. Yes, ma'am. That night, Raina drove to the beach. She walked to the edge of the water, let the waves wash over her feet, looked up at the stars. Hey, Tommy. The wind answered. Nothing else. I got promoted today. You probably know that already, wherever you are. I like to think you're watching, making fun of my dress uniform, telling me I still can't march in a straight line. She smiled, blinked back tears that she no longer tried to hide. I delivered your letter. Your mom read it to me. You were always better with words than I was, even at the end. The waves kept coming. Endless, relentless, beautiful. I'm better now. Not perfect. I don't think I'll ever be perfect. But I'm living again. Really living. Not just surviving. She pulled something from her pocket. The photograph she'd carried since Raqqa. 6 faces. 6 warriors. Only one still breathing. I'm going to make you proud, Tommy. All of you. I'm going to live enough for everyone. And when my time comes, whenever that is, I'm going to look you in the eye and tell you I didn't waste a single day. She kissed the photograph, held it against her heart. Thank you for loving me, even if you never got to say it. I knew, I always knew. The stars flickered overhead. A shooting star crossed the sky. She chose to believe it was him. Commander Hayes called her into his office the next morning. Mercer, I have a new assignment for you. What kind of assignment? Training command. You'll be overseeing the next generation of special operations candidates, making sure they're ready for what's coming. Training command. She considered it. Sir, with respect, I'd rather stay in the field. I know. That's why I want you in training. Hayes leaned forward. Reyna, the best operators don't just complete missions. They create other operators. They pass on what they've learned. They build legacies. You want me to build a legacy? I want you to shape the future. Every candidate you train, every lesson you teach, every life you impact, that's your legacy. That's how Tommy and your teammates live on. Through you. Through the people you create. She hadn't thought about it that way. When do I start? Next month. You'll be the first female lead instructor in special operations history. No pressure. None at all. Hayes smiled. You've already done the impossible, Mercer. This is just the next chapter. The first class arrived 6 weeks later. 40 candidates. Eager. Terrified. Convinced they knew what they were getting into. They had no idea. Reyna stood before them in the morning light, the ocean behind her, the obstacle course ahead. Listen up. My name is Lieutenant Commander Mercer. For the next 18 weeks, I will be your instructor, your guide, and your worst nightmare. No one moved. No one breathed. Some of you will make it. Most of you won't. That's not a threat. That's statistics. This program has a 90% dropout rate, and I intend to make it higher. She walked the line, studied faces, remembered standing where they stood thinking the same thoughts. But here's what I want you to understand. If you make it, if you earn your place among the best warriors in the world, you will be part of something larger than yourself. A brotherhood, a sisterhood, a family that transcends rank and branch and background. She stopped in front of a young woman, 18, maybe 19, eyes that reminded her of herself at that age. You will learn to protect people who cannot protect themselves. You will learn to run toward danger when everyone else runs away. You will learn that true strength isn't about muscle or weapons or tactics. It's about heart, about the willingness to sacrifice everything for someone you've never met. She stepped back, addressed the entire group. Some of you are here because you want to be heroes. Let me tell you something about heroes. They don't exist. There are only ordinary people who make extraordinary choices in moments that matter. If you want glory, leave now. If you want to serve, stay. No one left. Good. Then let's begin. The weeks turned into months, the months into years. Reyna trained 7 classes, watched 300 candidates become warriors, saw her methods adopted across the special operations community. She visited Sarah every Thanksgiving, called Maria every month, stayed in touch with the families of her fallen teammates. She never forgot Raqqa, never stopped carrying the weight of what happened there. But she learned to transform that weight into purpose. Every candidate she trained was a tribute to Tommy. Every lesson she taught was a promise kept. Every life she shaped was proof that survival wasn't a curse. It was a responsibility. And she honored it every single day. On the anniversary of Raqqa, 5 years after Tommy died, Reyna stood before his grave at Arlington National Cemetery. Sarah stood beside her. Maria, now a Navy lieutenant herself, stood on her other side. 3 women, bound by loss, united by love. "Hey, Tommy," Reyna whispered. "I brought friends this time. I hope you don't mind." The wind stirred the flags around them, gentle, peaceful. "You were right, you know, about everything. I did outlive you, and I'm glad. Not because living is easy, because it means I get to keep your memory alive." Sarah squeezed her hand. Maria wiped her eyes. "I'm not running anymore. I'm not hiding. I'm standing right here exactly where I'm supposed to be doing exactly what I was meant to do." She placed her hand on the cold marble headstone. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for dying so that others could live. Her voice broke. But she kept going. Rest easy, warrior. You've earned it. And when we meet again, I'll have one hell of a story to tell you. She stepped back, saluted, held the position until her arm ached. Then she turned and walked away. Not from Tommy. Never from Tommy. Toward everything he'd wanted for her. Toward life. Toward purpose. Toward a future she'd finally learned to embrace. They asked her once in an interview years later what she wanted people to remember about her story. She thought about the diner, about Sarah, about the letter and the gun and the moment she'd refused to kneel. She thought about the price of silence and the power of speaking up. She thought about all the women who'd come after her breaking barriers she'd helped shatter. And she answered with the only truth that mattered. They pointed guns at my head, and I didn't blink. Not because I wasn't afraid. I was terrified. But fear doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do when you're afraid. She paused. Let the words settle. I was a girl they didn't see. A woman they underestimated. A warrior they tried to break. And I'm still standing. Not because I'm special. Because I refused to give up. Her eyes found the camera. Steady. Unflinching. Alive. That's the price of threatening a Navy SEAL. Not the beating you take. The lesson you learn. That true strength doesn't come from weapons or numbers or size. It comes from the unshakable belief that some things are worth fighting for. She stood. Some people are worth dying for. But more importantly, they're worth living for. And I intend to live for a very long time. The interview ended. But her story never did. Because Raina Mercer was no longer running from the past. She was building the future. One warrior at a time. One choice at a time. One day at a time. And she was just getting started.